ultimately, video games are going to become a new art form. I don't think they're there yet. They're fun. They're not art.
I thought we were at a point where it was pretty universally accepted that video games were an art form. And by that, I don't mean to say that elements of art go into games, but that games themselves can be art. I think it's important to clarify that because while I think there's an art to good game design, at the end of the day, the product might be something like football. It's a game, but I think most people would accept that it's not really art, even though the logos themselves are works of art, and you could argue about other elements to it. Similarly, we could take a game like Overwatch. The artist put in time creating the character assets, each being a piece of art. The design itself was well thought through and constantly reworked to make the game as fun as possible. The theme song is epic, incredible, and I personally find it to be moving, which you could also say is a piece of art. However, the end product, even though it's made up of individual artistic components, is a competitive game similar to football. Or, in the case of first-person shooters, a beefed-up version of Tag. And yes, I do mean Tag, the game you play with your friends as a kid. Or now. I mean, I'm not judging, do what you like. The point is, first-person shooters have a lot of similarities to these basic game mechanics, just with a lot added onto it. Similarly, while visually stunning, I wouldn't necessarily consider Cuphead to be art, as a game. The animations and drawings are stunning, and yeah, I actually really enjoy the game, but the gameplay itself and what the game overall expresses is a little more up for debate, which I'm not here to do with Cuphead. If you find the game itself to be art, that's fine. What I'm trying to make clear is that I can somewhat understand why people may not view games as an art form. Roger Ebert famously said he didn't think games were art a long time ago, and I was surprised to see George R.R. Martin stating he didn't think games were quite there yet, which is why I wanted to talk about it. The goal of this video is going to be to show various examples of games that I consider to be art, and also hopefully a video you can use to show other people various games that are artistic expressions, so you can just pop on a video and put this debate that should have been over a long time ago to bed. I imagine that most people watching this already agree with me that games are an art form, but there's some things I wanted to talk about before listing some examples. What's considered to be art is highly subjective. While there are specific definitions, the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power, or the various branches of creative activities such as painting, music, literature, and dance. I imagine that if you walk up to a random person and ask them what they consider to be art, that definition is going to change person by person. If you look at films, some films are considered works of art, while others will be chalked up to entertainment for the masses, as opposed to a piece of art, something meant to entertain somebody versus an expression with a meaning behind it. Would you consider The Avengers to be a work of art? What about The Nun? What about Scary Movie 3? What about Jack and Jill?
Everyone wants my Dunkachino. Can't get enough of my Dunkachino.
Etc., etc. And I'm not going to tell you what that answer is. My only point is that everyone will have a different answer in different line as to what that is. Some people will think all film is art, and some people will think it depends on the intent or other possible factors. So I'm drawing up a list of games I personally think could be inarguably considered works of art and the reasons why. As a fair warning, there will be spoilers for these games I discuss, as that's important for explaining why for a fair deal of them. As such, I'll have timestamps in the description so you can quickly skip past games you don't want spoiled. This, of course, isn't every game, just some I think are great examples, and I'd love to hear other examples that I missed and what you think in the comments when this video's done. Braid was released to Xbox Live in 2008, and for me, it was a pivotal moment that showed me just what games were capable of in terms of utilizing their mechanics in a meaningful artistic expression. And as Soulja Boy once famously raved,
"It ain't got no point to the game. You just walk around jumping on shit. And it ain't no point to the game. You just go around like shit. Oh, I fell off the ladder. No, I didn't. This shit's stupid as hell, man."
We're with you, Soulja Boy. So, as a basic premise, Braid is a puzzle platform game where your character, Tim, travels through various levels collecting puzzle pieces in order to put together a large puzzle on display in order to reach the final level, where he's traveling to save the princess. Similar to a take on Mario, who needs to travel to the final level of his platform game to save Princess Peach. There's a catch, however. Your character can rewind time whenever you like. This means that any mistake you make and problem you can solve by going back in time and fixing your mistake. At the beginning of each stage are musings from Tim, expressing desire, frustration, and the want for forgiveness. Many gameplay mechanics introduced are interwoven within the narrative. As an example, the first area's theme is time and forgiveness, where Tim muses that one should be rewarded for learning from their mistakes rather than punished for making a mistake. The gameplay mechanic introduced is rewinding time, where the player can immediately be rewarded for making a mistake. Chapter 6's theme, Hesitance, has Tim talking about wearing what's likely a wedding ring and how it makes others hesitant to approach him, so sometimes he'll tuck his ring away in his pocket and other times put it on display, slowing down all time around it within the gameplay itself. Throughout the game, certain gaming tropes are presented and broken, with Jonathan Blow, the creator of the game, stating his game was a statement about the status quo of the industry. In one moment, a dinosaur congratulates you for reaching a castle but tells Tim the princess is in another castle, directly mocking Mario. In another moment, you reach the castle and completely blow off the dinosaur. But what truly takes this game to the next level is both its ending and secrets contained within that deepen the story that it tells. The whole time throughout the game, you've been helping Tim achieve his goal of reaching his princess. The chapter Hesitance brings a possible disturbing revelation. Perhaps in a perfect world, the ring would be a symbol of happiness. It's a sign of ceaseless devotion. Even if he will never find the princess, he will always be trying. He still will wear the ring. If this is a wedding ring, is Tim married and seeking another woman? If it's not, why is Tim wearing such a ring when he's searching for his princess, so to speak? And then you reach chapter 1, interestingly, and it's what you would expect. An evil villain has captured a princess saying, "I've got you." The princess runs away screaming, "Help." Tim desperately chases after the princess as lava comes at you both from the side. The princess activates levers that help Tim across deathly chasms. Eventually he's under her house in the basement. Eventually he's outside of her window as she makes it indoors. Eventually, time just stops. The princess is sleeping. Tim is standing out of her window watching her. And then you begin reversing time, the main mechanic of the game. The princess sees you and starts running away from you. She attempts to drop a chandelier on you. She tries to stop you from climbing a ladder to reach her. All the platforms you thought she'd raised in order to help you are actually platforms she's been trying to drop in order to stop you from reaching her. She reaches a dead end with the vine and screams for help. The knight yells, "Come down here." She calls for help and jumps into his arms. He says, "I've got you," as he climbs away. You were the stalker all along. All of Tim's musings were about a girl he had been going after without her knowledge or permission. Everything you as a player had chosen to do had been under a misguided pretense. And while I can explain this to you, just like a film or painting, part of the art is in experiencing it. When you discover what you've done and who you're playing as and the meaning behind everything, it feels truly shocking. Hidden within the game are insane secrets. There's a cloud where if you wait for 2 hours of real game time, it will slowly, very slowly, work its way to the edge of a screen, allowing you to get a secret star. All of these secret stars are insanely difficult to find and collect, with my bet being you'll probably need a guide to do so. Collect all of these and you'll be able to catch the princess, something you never should have been able to do. She suddenly explodes and you find a secret new area, all of this comparing her to an atomic bomb and humanity striving for something it never should have had, another deeper layer to the game and meaning behind everything you've done. These are my own interpretations, but Jonathan Blow, the creator of the game, has stated that there are more than one interpretation to the story. But playing it and experiencing these things, as the game toys with the mechanics of the game and openly mocks players for collecting secrets is something they never should have done. It truly stands out as an artistic statement and achievement. Nier Automata, or Automata, I actually don't know the correct pronunciation, released in 2017 and takes place in a futuristic world in where you play as androids created by humans who were invented in order to fight off against alien-made robots intent on wiping out all of humanity. While all this seems fairly standard, what's interesting is the way the game completely twists this, and in a way only video games could do. You see, while the surface of the game is this struggle between two warring robotic entities, on the surface fighting for long-forgotten masters, the androids fighting for humans, and robots fighting for aliens, the story takes a major existential turn. Many of the robots have lost the will to fight, with the pacifist robot, Pascal, leading this movement. The robots themselves, who were programmed specifically to do one thing, breaking their programming and starting to act more human. Meanwhile, the androids are reborn upon death with whatever memories they uploaded prior to dying. However, if they gain a new memory before their death, that ultimately changes who they are, and they aren't able to upload this new version of who they have become is lost. All of this leads to questions of what is the purpose of their existence? Why are they gaining more thoughts? What is the point of living? Especially when it's ironically discovered that both the humans and aliens, their creators, have been long dead, and these androids and robots have been continuing a war due to their programming for absolutely no reason. And again, this sounds like a story a film or book could tackle, but here's what makes it more unique in this context. There are several endings to Nier Automata, and finishing certain stories unlocks other stories. You'll play through the exact same events as different characters and gain completely new perspectives on the events unfolding based on who you're playing as. And it's specifically in how you gain the different perspectives and points of view in the game, how playing as one character will give you one perspective of the world, and then playing as another completely twists that around. All of this as the game plays with typical gaming conventions in order to hammer this story in. When you replay the game a second time, you'll witness, from the perspective of another character, certain choices you made in the first game play out. At the end of the game, you'll face an incredibly difficult final challenge which is near impossible to completing until you discover you can use the aid of other players who have chosen to sacrifice their save data, the ultimate show of beating a game, in order to help other players finish the game, a sacrifice you're then allowed to make as well. All of this still maintaining the theme of what was the purpose of your life and the meaning, and how will you choose to use it? What is more impactful in this instance? Keeping that save data for your personal satisfaction, or giving it up to legitimately aid others? Mono has been sacrificed due to her believed cursed destiny, and Wander, whose connection to her we don't know, sets off to the Forbidden Land and speaks with the entity Dormin, who according to legend can revive the dead. Dormin reveals it may be possible to revive Mono if the 16 idols in his temple are destroyed, by destroying the 16 colossi roaming the Forbidden Land. However, Wander may also have to pay a great price. The story of Shadow of the Colossus sounds straight out of the mythology, but what elevates it is its presentation of the story. The Forbidden Land is vast and open, without much happening between each Colossus. But on approaching a Colossus, a true force of nature greets you, and one that, just by sheer size compared to your character, seems impossible to take on. This all leads to a huge swell of excitement as you take on your first Colossus, with the game's music swelling to match your accomplishment and sense of awe. Yet, on taking down the Colossus, it's a somewhat sad ordeal. You realize maybe what you're doing isn't right. Maybe there's a good reason the idols are sealed by these roaming giants. While some Colossi attack you immediately, as per video game fashion, many peacefully roam until your character starts the battle. In many games, at least by this point in 2005 when the game was released, your violence is necessitated by self-defense as hordes of enemies rush at you. But this brings an entirely different feel. Are you disrupting a peaceful being? Is it worth all of this to revive Mono? And you're answered as your body slowly degrades away with each Colossus you slay. And while in a lot of ways, this sounds like any game or something a movie or book could accomplish, it's about the presentation, as I mentioned before. Roaming the peaceful fields on your own as you control the character gives you a chance to reflect on your actions. In between all of the 16 Colossus you tackle, you're forced to once again search the lands for the next one, once again reflecting upon what you're doing. while a movie keeps going and a book continues as you read the words, your wandering of the world and the harsh contrast presented by your actions and interruptions of the piece that you're creating is something that you're doing entirely within the world and on your own time. While oftentimes entertainment mediums are afraid to take their time, this one does, and that's what makes it so impactful. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons was released in 2013 to various platforms, and, in my opinion, hasn't received the amount of recognition it deserves. You play as two brothers whose father has gotten ill and their mother is dead. As their only surviving parent is ill, the two decide to go on a quest to save their father by collecting water from the Tree of Life. Everything takes place in what seems like a traditional fantasy fairy tale setting, with your analog stick controlling the two brothers. One stick controls Nai, the younger brother, another stick controls Naya, the elder brother. This is integral to the gameplay as the two brothers work together to solve various puzzles. You play as they struggle together through obstacles and challenges, and come to rely on each other's skills, all controlled by you with each joystick. They survive incredible odds and challenges on their travels, up until Naya gets stabbed and mortally wounded. As the younger brother travels to finally get the water to save their father, you return to find Naya dead. Like the younger brother, you truly feel this loss. And yes, the game presents it well and in a suitably depressing manner. But it's also thanks to the gameplay and controls. You've come to rely on the elder brother to solve many puzzles. Without him, you and the younger brother both feel lost. As the player, you can no longer use the analog stick that would control the older brother, so you feel that as a player, even you've lost the ability to do something. However, as the younger brother struggles to return home, he grows stronger for it, and with it, he begins doing things he needed his older brother for, which all take place on his analog stick you've been using, making you, as a player, feel him growing stronger with his abilities expanding. It's a fairly short game, but its integration of the gameplay and controls interwoven with the story to represent loss and growth are something that no other medium could do, and are used to present a story and feeling in a way only a video game could do. Imagine you were a big fan of Rocky when you saw it. Then, trailers come out for Rocky 2. It looks like it'll be even better than the first, and you're super excited about it. All the trailers showcase Rocky boxing, and the posters reinforce this. Then, you show up to the theater, and it begins with an exciting match, only for Rocky to die. Suddenly, you start following a new character, completely different and never shown before or advertised. This is exactly what Metal Gear Solid 2 did. It played off of the hype of the first game, with players excited for the sequel to the highly successful Metal Gear Solid from the PlayStation 1. Not only that, but Metal Gear Solid was for the first PlayStation, and Metal Gear Solid 2 was on the PlayStation 2, meaning far superior graphics and possibly gameplay. Everything shown about the game, including the box and screenshots, indicating this is exactly what Metal Gear Solid 2 would be, and the first mission of the game had players playing as MGS-1 Solid Snake in what felt like the perfectly advanced sequel, only for him to die. Hideo Kojima, director of the series, decided to play with players' expectations of what a modern game would be with a postmodern artistic expression. Players would then be subjected to essentially replaying Metal Gear Solid 1 in many ways, but now as Raiden, and even with many Metal Gear Solid 1's flaws included. You eventually meet Solid Snake of the first game, who directly tells you he's turning on cheat codes from the first game in order for you to win the mission you play together. Eventually, the game strips you of complete control over Raiden as he gains self-awareness that he's in a simulation. The game completely toys with its players' expectations to make a statement about how people perceive and spread information, and what is real or isn't real. Hideo Kojima specifically sought out to utilize the game medium in a way other mediums couldn't in order to express these sentiments. If you want to hear more about the art of Metal Gear Solid 2, I highly recommend watching Super Bunny Hop's critical close-up on the game. When you first boot up Journey, there's a mountain with a light in the distance. You're not sure why, but from a sweeping desert with what seems to be many gravestones littered throughout, you head towards that symbol of light. Along the way, you find murals wordlessly depicting the world's story, a civilization torn apart by war, and the remaining mechanisms still set out to destroy you as your character travels. But in this case, it's not about the story. Throughout your journey, you'll come across other robot figures like you. At first, it's unclear if these are controlled by a computer or another human being via the internet. What is clear is while you've been journeying solo up until this point, you now have another figure journeying alongside you. The music changes slightly, adding more instrumentation while this person accompanies you. And you can choose to lag behind or try to ditch them, but a strange thing happens. At least in my case, as this will be different for everyone who plays, as that's part of the art of this. You'll start to feel a kinship with the person traveling alongside you, encounter a threat, and you'll be rooting for them to make it through alongside you and genuinely feel remorseful if something takes them out. There's no spoken communication, yet you've developed a bond with your fellow traveler on the same worn path. And you'll probably find that they too seem to react similarly, waiting for you if you're lagging behind to catch up as you wait for them if they struggle. And once the game ends, you learn who you were traveling with. Another human player somewhere out there as you see the gamer tags of everyone who journeyed with you. I think drawing out this kind of emotional response and kinship in someone that you don't even know yet are traveling to the same destination with is something only a game like this can really test. Who are you really? How do you react to these other robed figures? Are you inclined to work together or do you journey solo? These are interesting self-reflections and one that this journey truly brings out. Bioshock is another game that toys with the general perception of the game narrative and how it relates to gameplay. Your character, Jack, is inside of a plane that crashes into the Atlantic Ocean. You're the only survivor and find a lighthouse which has a bathysphere in it that takes you into a hidden world unknown to the outside, Rapture. This underwater city, created by Andrew Ryan, was supposed to be a utopia for the upper class elite to live in an area outside of government control and morality. However, you discover it's become a run-down dystopia with insane creatures running around and the humans locked away. A character comes onto your radio named Atlas, who claims to want to help you out and kindly asks for your help in return. Video game conventions ensue, with Atlas acting as the man assigning you objectives, and you playing through the game following course and listening to everything he has to say. And this is where the game breaks ground in its storytelling. While the world itself is incredibly interesting to explore, with the background of what happened here delivered through audio logs you'll find that explain what happened in various locations, the gameplay is interesting with the new invention of Adam allowing humans to gain superhuman abilities, including yourself as you inject this into your DNA. It's how Bioshock toys with video game conventions. You eventually reach Andrew Ryan, who asks you,
"Sit, would you kindly? Stand, would you kindly? Run! Stop! Turn. A man chooses. A slave obeys."
And the game takes you out of control. You're no longer playing as you witness Jack murdering Andrew Ryan. And then it becomes apparent. Would you kindly acts as a trigger word for Jack. Every time you'd done something for Atlas, he preceded it with, "Would you kindly?" Unknowingly, you had played right into the game and Atlas's hand. It felt like what you were doing was because it was the game, but that's exactly it. All along, you only had one choice. You had to do what the game told you, and just like Jack himself, you had no other choice. You too had been controlled the entire time. There are several games that have done what Doki Doki Literature Club has done, but this game struck a chord with many and became a more prominent example. While games are an interactive medium, usually involving you playing the game, Doki Doki Literature Club does something entirely different with themes of existentialism. After installing the game, you're greeted by a typical genre in the gaming medium, the visual novel, and in this case, a dating visual novel. You're presented with a number of possible bachelorettes and try to win the love of the one who you like the most. Each of them possesses a stereotypical two-dimensional personality, such as the nerdy one or the peppy one. But that's before things get dark. It turns out your friend who invited you to the literature club, Sayori, is depressed, and at one point in the game she hangs herself, ending the game. You then start the game over, your previous save file is deleted, and the world now exists as a one without her. The game starts breaking and glitching as you continue to play it, and at times, the only way to progress the story of the game is to manually find and delete files from your own computer. It completely breaks the fourth wall, with one character in particular self-aware that she's a video game character. In doing these things, Doki Doki Literature Club mocks the types of games it, at first glance, appears to be, poking at the various tropes within the dating visual novel genre. While Dark Souls is usually praised for its gameplay and the lore of the game, I think the integration of the story into the narrative is just as important, as is how the gameplay relates to the overall themes of the game. Dark Souls sees a world where gods have usurped the land from everlasting dragons. However, after their great war, their time is coming to an end, and that which gave them power, the first flame, is fading away and dying. Humans cursed with the dark mark and turning into undead have been plaguing the lands, and overall, everything is in a state of decay with little to no hope. The Witch of Izalith, one of the major gods of the time, attempts to create a second first flame to revitalize their reign, but instead curses her land and people, turning them all into demons and giving birth to a new race of demons. Gwyn, another of the major gods, in a last-ditch effort to restore his family's reign, burns himself alive at the first flame, using himself as kindling to stoke the fires. But the flame is once again fading, and that's when you come in. Rumors circulate of the Chosen Undead, an undead who will go on a pilgrimage to the land of the gods and save the world. The game first received notoriety due to its difficulty and challenge, and all this is present within the themes of the game. Characters in the game will lament how difficult their life is, and if things get too bad, will give up and turn hollow. Similarly, you'll go through vast struggles dying repeatedly, and for many, feel on the brink of giving up on the game and essentially going hollow yourself. As you progress through the game, you'll be told by multiple characters that your task is to inherit the first flame as Lord Gwyn had done before, and essentially become the new king of the land. Your task is to kill the other major lords who have come before, take their souls, and throw them into the first flame in order to once again rekindle the first flame and become a hero. And when you finally finish the game and defeat a hollowed out Gwyn to revitalize the first flame, lighting the bonfire, something you've done several times before in the game, instead burns you alive. A massive fire starts and you unwittingly sacrifice yourself to rekindle the fire of the world. And while I find that all thematically interesting, here's where the game pulls out something I don't think is possible in any other medium, and part of why I love the art of telling this story so much. Throughout the game, you can openly explore whatever you like, and regularly find items with descriptions of what the world used to be like. If you pay attention to this, you'll be able to discover an incredibly important thing, something the game never overtly tells you and you have to discover on your own. The characters of the world and the legend itself are all a lie. You've been deceived and lied to throughout the entire game as to what you're doing and what the purpose is. By playing the game normally and following the cues of the characters, as you do in many games, you're unwittingly manipulated by them into doing their bidding and perpetuating their cycle. However, you can discover the truth of the story by exploring and make up your mind about what you want to do at the end of the game. You'll discover one of the characters, Guinevere, who had pushed you on your quest, had long ago left Lordran and the land you occupy. If you try to, you can attack her and discover she's an illusion. Anorlando, the grand land of the gods and lit by sunlight, is also an illusion with the sun already fading. And you can decide if you'll martyr yourself for a race of gods who have long feared and undermined humans, or if you'll turn away and start a new age of dark, and with it bring about the unknown and potentially end civilizations in a new era. To me, what's so interesting about the narrative is that you never have to learn the full story. The game allows you to be manipulated. And while a book or film or play may deceive you, the reveal will always happen in the same way for everyone using those mediums. With Dark Souls, you can play right into being deceived without ever knowing and never being the wiser. You can discover after playing, as I did, that you've been deceived the whole time, or you can figure it out for yourself and find different aspects to the narrative based on how you explore and choose to play the game. The apocalypse is now, and not due to an atomic bomb, but rather an event called the Flash, which has wiped out all women. This means the end of the human race as they can no longer procreate. So, how do the still living men exist? What do they do? How do they react? Lisa acts as a tongue-in-cheek response to that, showing roaming gangs, male prostitution, drug dependency to the in-game drug joy, and many going crazy or depressed due to this. In this world, your character, Brad Armstrong, finds a female child he names Buddy. Despite being told he should give her to the warlord Rando, Brad refuses, choosing to raise her in secret on his own, partially due to parental abuse he was raised under. However, one day, she disappears. What follows is you controlling Brad on his quest to find her. In standard role-playing game fashion, Brad will meet allies who become party members, joining him on his quest. However, at certain points throughout the game, the player must choose to let a character die, or have Brad permanently lose a limb, making him drastically less powerful in a fight and more joy-dependent. Unlike any other medium where you witness someone making a difficult choice like this, your character's actions are not only ones that you choose, but ones that you, as a player, feel the consequences of, as it truly alters the gameplay. Additionally, Brad is hooked on the drug joy, and using it has both positive consequences as well as negative consequences. With party members able to permanently die, it can be extremely tempting to use the drug in dire situations, despite what it might do to Brad in the long run. There's many revelations to the game which I'd prefer not to spoil, as it unfortunately didn't receive the attention it deserved, and I hope others pick it up. But overall, the game uses its mechanics to speak on drug addiction and showcase difficult decisions and moral dilemmas in interesting and unique ways. This, of course, is just a sampling of games that I wanted to talk about. But there are far more well worth discussion. So in the comments, I'd love to hear what games have affected you and what games you feel elevated the medium. As always, thank you so much to those who are kind enough to contribute to my Patreon. In particular this month, Chris Fry, Jason Buck, and Invidentia. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.